Hi, welcome back. This is how to create a scatterplot graph, part 2. Okay, so we got ourselves to this point here where we have just an unfinished graph, but everything else seems to look nice. So we go from our setup to customize. Okay, so we've moved from setup over to customize. Okay, our chart style should be the scatterplot chart, so I'm not going to mess with that, but we are going to start with chart and axes titles. Now you can tell I have no title here, so I'm going to type in a really nice title, and I want my title to be descriptive of what I am graphing. And so, you know, if I move this down, I would probably just go ahead and take the title that I used on the date table. If you should click off of your graph like I did and that the direction set up here goes away, all you have to do is click back on here, go to these three dots and go under Edit Chart. And here we are, back to Customize. We are back here under Chart Title. And I'm going to use that same exact title. And I should probably make sure I spell it correctly because that says relationship. So let's try relationship. You know, spelling kind of important. I'll fix the chart title afterwards. Alright, so here we go. So relationship between mass and volume of liquid A and liquid B. That's a really nice title. Now I've got my title on there. It's at the top of the page. It's kind of out of the way, or the top of the chart I should say. It's out of the way. But I would notice that I do not have, okay, why is that doing that? Stop. I do not have my Y and X axis labeled, so I'm going to go back to my edit chart. I don't know why that cell keeps coming up, and teacher problems here, folks. And back at it again. Let's move this up here so I can. Alright, so back to customize, back to chart title, chart axes and titles. My chart title is done, but I still need my axes labeled. And so I'm going to click on this little drop down, and I want my subtitle, which I really like when it's your name. And I'm not going to be printing these out, but it'd be nice if you put your name there. It makes it nice and easy when I'm looking. So subtitle's done. Let's go the horizontal axis. Now remember, our horizontal axis should be our independent variable. This is the variable we intentionally changed during the lab, and so in this case this is our volume. And I also want the unit it was measured in, so parenthesis, M capital L, and parenthesis. So there's my volume right there. And now I want to do my vertical axis title. Very important to have all axes labeled with unit and quantity. Quantity. Can't say that word. Alright, so my vertical y-axis should be the mass of liquid, and we measure that in grams. And that just says F. How about of? Okay. And so this represents my mass of liquid. That's all looking nicey-nicey. There's no other title or axis I have to deal with. Now my series. I have two different liquids here, which means I want to change one of them not only to a different color, but I'd like to change their point shape. So I'd like them to be completely different so they're easy to tell apart. So if I make one a triangle and the other a circle, it's now very easy to distinguish between them. Okay, so and you'd see up here I took it off of apply to all series because if I change all of them, then they're always going to be the same. You click here, you choose one out of the two, and then change that. Okay. So I'm now going to put this back to apply to all series because I want to add trend lines, and I want each line to have its own trend line. So I need to be back at all series. And I want to show my r squared value. Okay, so that's all looking nice. I have my trend lines, my r squared values, my legend, and I'm going to close up the series. Now let's see our legend here. It automatically puts it at the top. The bottom is never a really great place for it. You could put it over to the right as well, and you can see and read the distinction between the key better this way. It's up to you. Where does it look more visually pleasing for you? I feel like this really squishes and condenses my graph, so I kind of like it on the top. That is really up to you. I feel like you used to be able to shrink that a little bit. I guess not. So is there anything else about the legend? Not really. So let's look. Horizontal axis. Looks really nice. I could put in a minimum value here of 0. It's not necessary. It's okay to have the graph, I feel, start at the 10 milliliters. So that's the horizontal. If I check out my vertical axis, is there anything I need to adjust here? No, I think it's good. I don't need to put in a minimum or maximum value, so I'm just going to shut that. Grid lines. Okay. Don't change major grid lines. These major grid lines need to be left where they are because they're showing the actual plotted values for your 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 milliliter and just some even scale mass values up your y-axis. However, minor grid lines add that little bit of detail. Okay, so I'm in my vertical axis here. I am looking solely at my y to the sky values. So my majors go up by 20. So when I want to add my minors in, I want to think of how I could count from 0 to 20 easily, and how many lines that would be. So in counting from 0 to 20, I might think about counting by 5s. So I start at 0. So I'm going to go, I need one for 5, one for 10, one for 15. My 20 already exists, so that would be 3 minor grid lines. And now you can sort of estimate easily in between those, knowing that that's 5, and then 10, then 15, and 20 is right here. And it just continues on. Okay. Then I want to make sure, since those are my vertical grid lines, I'm also looking at my horizontal grid lines. Here I'm going from 10 to 20. I want to add enough minor grid lines that it gives me more detail, but without being too busy, taking away from the visual appeal. So again, minor grid lines only. If I was going to go from 10 to 20, I might want to think about counting by 2s, right? So if I was going from 10, I would need one for 12, 14, 16, and 18, because 20 already exists, so that would be 4 minor grid lines. And again, this is going to change based on the scale that you have present. Okay, so here we are. That seems to work nicely. It's not too busy. I'm not going to change the color of my grid lines. I don't want to take away from the graph itself. So now let's check. I have an appropriate title. My name is here. I have a legend that displays the lines and what they represent. I have my labeled with unit axes. My scale is nice. My minor grid lines make sense. They're easy to count with. I think this is pretty good. Very, very nice. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And now this is what my really nice graph looks like. There's the data table over here from which I made my graph. So the other piece here now is taking this information and putting it into your document. First thing I'm going to do is highlight and do a little Control-C for this entire data table. It's really important to know and to see where my graphs are going to come. So I'm going to go above the questions, bump that down a little bit, and Control-V. I'm going to keep it linked to the spreadsheet. That way if anything changed in my spreadsheet, it could change here also. Like for instance, I'd never changed that title to be spelled correctly. So I might go back in here and change that here now so that it is spelled correctly. So relationship. If I click off of that and go back here, see update, boop, fixes it because I linked it ever so nicely. If I want to stretch these out a little bit to keep them from being on more than one line, there that is nicely. Directly underneath this data table, I am going to highlight my graph. Hit Control-C. Go back here. Hit Control-V. Yes, I want to paste my chart, and yes, I want it linked to the spreadsheet. And I paste that in. Okay, that is looking good. This up here is the data table from which I made this graph. We're doing well. Now remember, at the beginning of the year, we've done a few of these scatter plots, so this should not be the very first time you're doing something like this. And remember, the best thing you can do after getting a graph in there is to really put a little asterisk in there, so a little Shift 8, and start to describe the graph and write a brief little statement here about the graph itself. What is it showing? So for instance, this graph, let's go, shows that as the volume of the liquids increased, the mass for each liquid also increased. And you could put some representative data in there to show what you were discussing. There you have it. I expect that you do now the same for density versus volume of both liquids. Remember, the very first column of your graphing table should be volume, followed by your density of liquid A and density of liquid B. You could do it right here in this same exact spreadsheet, or I tried to create another blank sheet for you to work with. Good luck. I'll be available by Google Chat, a open video chat room. If you should need me, please chime in. Thank you.